Hi, I'm Marie Adsed from the Open Data Institute Australian Network. We're part of a global network spanning 30 cities and nations all around the world. We're a not-for-profit and our global mission is to connect, inspire and equip people to innovate with data. So this is a short introductory tutorial designed especially for small businesses. The aim of this session is to explore the concept of open data and why it's good for small businesses to know about it. We believe as important as building digital skills in your business are building data skills. You may already be aware of the data that you collect and maintain as part of the business that you run. You're probably even starting to think about how you might become better at using that data to understand patterns in your business and maybe look at some of the trends that are influencing what's going on. But are you aware of this wealth of data that's being published by other parties, by local councils, by state governments, our federal government, all sorts of different organisations such as museums and libraries, all not only here in Australia but all around the world? And think about all of that knowledge that you could be tapping into. That's why it's good for small businesses to know about open data. So in this tutorial, we're going to cover some introductory concepts of data and open data, including what it is, where to find it, how to use it. I'm going to talk you through some examples of businesses here in Queensland that are using open data right now. And we'll do a short experimentation with some simple tools that I'm going to show you that will help you to get started and doing some things on your own. So before we really get into the subject, I thought it's, speaking of reusing and repurposing, I thought it would be useful to kick off with this introductory video that's been prepared by the ODI in London that explains the concept really well of open data.
I'm Dave Tarrant. I'm the trainer and data scientist here at the Open Data Institute. So open data is data that anyone can access, use and share. Okay, so data becomes accessible by being made available online on the web. Data becomes usable by being available in a common, understandable format. Okay? The most important thing is that data is licensed. Okay? This license should allow for free use of the data, including for commercial purposes. So think of data at the bottom of a three-tier triangle. So you've got data, information and knowledge. So data is the lowest level of abstraction from which information and then knowledge are derived. So think of all the locations, pictures, reviews, descriptions and prices that you might need in order to plan a holiday, for instance. So you take all of this data and you start turning it into information about where you want to go, and from that you contextualise it and turn it into knowledge that is relevant to you. At the same time, someone else could take all that data and look at the differences in costs between activities across the country, so a completely different usage. So it's critical to have this data so we can build these different levels of information and then allow people to contextualise them to build their own knowledge. So data is open if anyone is free to use, reuse and share it. Okay, so this use must be without restriction. So if you apply a non-commercial license on data, that's a restriction, so therefore it's no longer open. But although data is free to use, and that is how it's measured in its usage, it's all about use. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean it comes without cost. It might not be free to access. Okay, in order to maintain and sustain the availability of this open data, there may be some marginal cost. And the common occurrence is that this cost should be no more than the reasonable reproduction cost of the unit of data that someone is asking for. Okay, so open data, something to be open data is all about measuring how people can use it. It's not about how it's published and how it's made available. It's about what people can do with it once they have it. That's what makes it open data. Open data has the power to transform the interaction between governments, businesses and society, and this will unlock real value. New applications can develop, problems can be solved, okay, and this will help generate real value for society, the economy and also solve some of the environmental issues. And this is where it's already generated real impact, in improving our transport infrastructures and saving countless lives. The web is already an accepted part of our societal infrastructure, and open data is the next critical part of this infrastructure.
Now, just reflecting on some of the messages that Dave spoke about in that introductory video. For data to be open, it must be available for anyone to access, use and share. 3 simple key elements to keep in mind. Now, it's very easy for us in Australia. Access, A, use, U, and share, S. Data has to be shared in the sense that it has to be made available for others to access, either published online or on the web or in other locations. It's got to be in a commonly understandable format, such as a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, or even better in an open source format such as CSV. It has to have an open license attached to it. Now we'll have a look at some examples of an open license as we get further into this session. But an example of an open license is down the bottom of the slide there. That's a Creative Commons by attribution share alike open license. And it's the license that gives people permission to access, use and share. As Dave spoke about, free isn't always about, free is the way we speak when we talk about free. It's free to use it, not the no cost. So it's about your ability to use the data rather than the cost of the data set. There are some instances, there aren't any that I'm aware of in Australia or that we're aware of here, where there is a cost to access public open data, but there may come a time where to keep that data set sustainable, it might be a particularly large data set, it might be live in real time, then there might be a cost associated with that. And to share the cost across all of the people wanting to access and use that still comes within the realms of open data. Sharing and opening data for others to use and reuse and repurpose enables people to see problems differently, to solve challenges in new and innovative ways, but also to create brand new products and services that might not have existed before. Services that enable people to wayfind better, to connect better with events and things going on around their city, or even for you to be able to promote things that are happening inside your business. For example, a local council, as part of its business as usual, issues permits for people to build a swimming pool. A local pools supply business might be able to have a totally different purpose for that data set by being able to understand where the higher populations of pools are so that they can run more targeted marketing campaigns. Another concept that was spoken about in that introductory video by Dave at the ODI is this knowledge triangle, which is a very commonly known concept. In fact, a lot of people even put a W on the top for wisdom. So data is that raw material, the building blocks from which knowledge and information is derived. I'll give you an example in a beautician's case, for example. So a price list is really, in her spreadsheet, might look like just a lot of numbers and letters on a page. But given some context, that becomes information about a series of services that that beautician business provides. But personalised creates knowledge for their customers so that they are then able to make far more informed decisions about what's right for them, what kind of products and services will they need to book into and use and interact with. So that's what is meant by open data. Anyone can access, use and share it. So let's have a look now at what the differences are between some of the other concepts that you might be hearing about. Shared data, closed data, big data. There's lots of those terms are being used interchangeably these days. So let's have a look at demystifying some of those concepts. So big, medium and small data applies across the entire data spectrum, and open data belongs, as it's described here, on a spectrum. So this was created by the ODI in London, and it's a fantastic tool to help people really get clear about what it is that open data is. Open data is this stuff on the very end of the spectrum. It has an open license and enables people, as we talked about, to access, reuse and share that. There's a whole lot of stuff in the middle here that we call shared data, and some really good examples of that might be your health data, your own health records at the doctors. Now, you would willingly give permission for your doctor to share that if you were going to see a specialist, for example. So that becomes shared between health providers, or it might be shared with Medicare and other organisations. You might think your finance data is closed, but there are many instances where we also freely give permission to others to use that data for certain purposes by certain people. You might fill in a credit card application at the bank and think that that's just, you know, between you and the bank, but you'll find when you read the T's and C's that you probably don't actually read, you just tick the box, we all do, that's giving permission then for related providers of that bank to contact you about other services. So you might suddenly get a phone call from someone at the bank offering superannuation, for example, or a provider connected to the bank, and you wonder, how did that happen? Well, it's because you've given permission for that data to be shared. Then you start to move through like your commercially sensitive information, your CRM, your customer relationship management system, or something like that, for example. That's probably moving more into the sensitive and closed. You might very rarely give access to that. Your accountant might have access to that sort of information, for example. And moving right down to the very dark end of the spectrum is things like matters of national security, which obviously would be locked down. And so when we talk about open data and people express concerns to us about, oh, what about this kind of data and the wrong hands and all the rest of it, what we're talking about are things that are a bus timetable, for example, that if you release that data, if a public authority released that data, then a whole bunch of wayfinding apps and ways to, for our convenience, to get us able to move about the city and far more efficiently is to our advantage. So they're the sorts of things that you'll hear about when you talk about data, but I just thought that that might be useful to get clear at the beginning. Okay, so we've talked about the introductory concept of open data and what it is. It's all about the permission that that it has on it for others to do something with it or not to do things with it. Now, where do you find it? Open data is a little bit harder to find than other sort of types of data sets, because we have here in Australia 3 layers of government. Everybody is publishing open data and often to different places, and so data becomes quite tricky to discover. So you've got, for example, data.queensland.gov.au. That's the Queensland Government's open data portal. The next one down with the QLD missing is logically our federal government open data portal. The Australian Bureau of Statistics publishes separately. Every local council around the place, and you think about how many of those there are, they publish open data quite often to their own individual open data portals. So we've got many different agencies publishing on different portals, and so one of the big things that we've found in our work with the open data community is, how do we find this stuff and how do we make it easier? So what we've done is create a list of all of the data sets that we know, well, not the data sets, sorry. We've created a window into all of the portals that exist. Every data custodian that we've managed to come across in our travels is listed in this one place, and I'll show you where that is on our website, because this is the sort of thing that gets very, very popular at hack events, etc. Oh dear, what have I done there? I've just pressed the wrong thing. At hack events, etc. I've jumped into Twitter by mistake. Okay, so where you find it, that's just taking you now to our website. I'll scroll right down to the bottom because this is where you find all of the tools. So in this section called data is where that list is held. So as I was saying, during hack events and things like that, this list gets a hammering because it's incredibly popular for people to be able to go to one place and find all of these portals. This is just a list of the portals. Once you click on each of these custodian owners, it takes you to their portal. So we're only just creating that window into all of these. And I'll take you to one, for example, the Queensland Government. So this is what the Queensland Government's open data portal looks like. As you can see, as at today, there are 2,420 data sets. 2,400, I should say, data sets that are out there right now that you could be accessing and using in your business. So let's have a little look, and I'll show you what they might look like. So you might be interested in traffic, for example. It might be something that's important to your business that you get a bit of an idea on traffic routes and things like that. So let's have a look at traffic infringements by offence type. The ones with little flames mean that they're hot, they're popular, so they get a lot of downloads. It's kind of cute, really. So let's have a look at traffic infringements by offence type, something all near and dear to some of our hearts. Now that's what it looks like when you click into it. That's telling you that it's a CSV file, so you can get it as a spreadsheet, but it's also available as an API if that means, if that's something that's important to you to take that data as a service rather than as a static data set. So you can have a look if you scroll down to what a little bit of a description about that is. So we can see that the publisher is the Department of Transport and Main Roads, and they have put a Creative Commons by attribution license on it. That is the consistent license that you will see on all data sets that are published, certainly in Queensland, but most publishers in Australia are also adopting the Creative Commons license suite. The by attribution license is the most open of the open licenses, and all that tells you there is if you're going to use that data set and turn it into something that you can maybe make as a commercial service, and it's quite acceptable to make money out of this, then you need to just attribute the Department of Transport and Main Roads and any other data set custodians that you might have combined together to create the thing that you're doing. Now I'll just jump back into the slides to where we were. So that's our collection there of where to find open data. But as we were talking about with that triangle, the knowledge and wisdom triangle, it's just data, it's just raw materials. Unless we turn it into that information and to turn it into knowledge and that wisdom, you have to do this thing, you have to use it. So the third thing we're going to talk about today, we've covered what is open data, we've covered where do you find it, how do we use it. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of Queensland businesses that have taken public open data to do some pretty cool stuff. So this was a winning entry in this year's GovHack competition. GovHack is an annual event. It's run across Australia and now in New Zealand, where governments all over the country get together and pitch some challenges that they'd like to try and solve inside government, and anyone can come along. It's a free weekend and use some public open data and try and come up with innovative ways to solve those challenges. So in this example, it's a business location guide. So the example they use is a ice cream shop in Nunda, just north of Brisbane. And they were thinking about opening up a new store, but they've thought about what's important to them. Why is their business successful in Nunda? They like the foot traffic that they get. They like the low crime rate. They like the fact that they've got good access to public transport in the area, so it generates a lot of sort of, as I was saying, that foot movement. There's a couple of other factors that are important to them as well. So this tool enables you to input the things that are important to you. It's using at the back end public open data sets from Queensland Police Service around crime rates. It's using that public transport data, examples of which we were just looking at, and other sorts of data sets. It's mashing those up all together and delivering this to a small business as a guide to help find a next location that might be suitable for you. And it brings up possible options that have those attributes that you're looking for. When you think about it, large corporations around the country have been doing this for a long time, but what this does, what open data does, is bring it into anyone's hands. It's free and easy to use, and so you can start to get that insight and that knowledge that McDonald's use, for example, when they build a new site. This is another example of a business using public open data. Right to Go is using the Brisbane City Council planning scheme, and if you've ever had to try and navigate a planning scheme from any local council, it's pretty challenging to know what you can do at your own property or what you can do at your own business to be able to expand the building, or maybe knock it down and rebuild, or you're looking at a new site and you don't know what you can do on that new site. So what Right to Go does is it consumes that city planning scheme, and you enter in your address, and it tells you what, and you enter in the sorts of things that you're looking to do on the property, and it'll tell you what kind of approvals you're going to need, really taking a complex data set and making it really easy to understand. And then the third thing, which is kind of cool, is It also gives you a list of local suppliers that do those sorts of things. So if you're time poor, like all of us are, it's a great little tool to be able to help you explore a fairly complex scenario and make it really consumable and easy for you. This is a really interesting example. This is what we call a visualisation of data. So this takes all of the Queensland Government finance data and turns it into something that we can really see a nice clear picture of at a glance of where the money comes from and what the money's being spent on. So we'll just have a little quick peek at this one because it's actually really interesting to see that in one picture. If you're an economist, for example, or you've got a business advising clients on anything to do with this, it's a really cool little tool. So this is the income, state government's income, Queensland government's income. That's the total number there. So you can roll around this big dial and have a look at what that sort of means. So let's have a look at this big section here. What's the biggest section of our income for Queensland government? It comes from grants from Queensland, from Canberra I should say, and you can see there that that's almost half of our revenue. So what's this section over here? GST revenue. Okay, so you're starting to get a bit of an idea. What's some of our other smaller pockets of revenue from Canberra? Okay, that's grants for on-passing to non-Queensland government entities. Right, sure, okay. And then you can go around and sort of have a drill down into where some of our revenue really comes from. Now, if you're a small business operator, you're going to want to know about this one. Tax, payroll tax, there it is, look at that. $3.7 million on payroll tax generated to the Queensland government. So it's really, I find this great because what it does is it helps us understand if you take a data set and move it into something like this, you can so easily understand what the data's trying to tell you and you start to see patterns that you would never have before been able to see. This is where the money goes out. So let's have a look at that. So what are some of the big pockets there? And this is by department. So let's have a look at this dark purple one here. That's Department of Education and Training. That's the spend that Queensland government put on that department. And this is what they spend their money on: employees, teachers' salaries, and it goes right around. So it's a really lovely, open and transparent way, whoops, I've pressed something there, that people can have a look at how things, you know, one of the benefits of open data is not just for us as consumers to be able to create new products and services and understand and solve problems in our own business, but we can also have a bit more of a transparent relationship with government as well. So that's that one there. Another example of open data is this here, and this is available right now. I should just mention that that previous example I had was a collaboration between Queensland Government and a small business here in Queensland called Truey, and that was developed as part of the Testing Within Government Procurement Framework, which is a new framework aimed to open the doors to help government and small business and industry create innovative solutions. So this one here is the Queensland Globe. Now this has been around for a while, but there's just been a new version of it released. It takes all of the spatial data sets that Queensland Government collect and put it in a visualisation so that you can go in and layer your own maps and get an idea of properties and locations. And I'll give you a little introductory video here by one of the creators of the Globe who'll speak to the actual details of it.
Just over 4 years ago, we launched the original Queensland Globe, which for the first time made the state's vast array of spatial data publicly available online in a simple, easy-to-use map viewer. The Globe has proven extremely popular with over 10 billion map requests made in that time from professionals and the public alike. 4 years can be a long time in the life of technology, so we're very excited to now be releasing the second generation Queensland Globe, which has kept the best features of its predecessor and added powerful new capabilities, making it even more accessible to Queenslanders. The new Globe is still easy to use, fast, free, and contains the same spatial data, well over 600 layers from all parts of Queensland Government. But it is now browser-based, which means you don't need to download an application to access it. This makes Queensland Globe fully mobile, available when and wherever you need it on smartphones and tablets. staff, or users in the field will now have the ability to pinpoint their location and access the data that they previously could only view in their office or home. So any user, whether they be farmers, planners, developers, house hunters, recreational users or students keen to learn more about their local surroundings, will have the latest, most up-to-date mapping available from the Queensland Government right at their fingertips. There are many new capabilities, but a key feature in the new Globe allows you to easily create and save your own maps. Search or choose your area of interest, add any combination of layers from the Globe, or add your own data. These customised views can then be saved and shared by email or through social media such as Facebook and Twitter with the click of the button. You'll also find improved querying, measuring and printing capabilities amongst other new features. There's so much more to the new look Queensland Globe.
Okay, great. So I know a number of planners and surveyors, as Steve was referring to in that introductory video, who actually have the Globe on in the background of their computer the whole day. So my brother-in-law is a town planner and he has it on the whole time, because what's changed for him is when a client phones up, he's immediately able to have a look at the site while he's speaking to them on the phone. He can layer on some planning zones and things like that. He can look at flooding and other maps and other scenarios. So when the client's got some questions, he's able to manage those questions on the fly and actually be able to cut down a whole lot of time, for them, and cost for them as well. So plus he's able to deliver a much better, more valuable experience for his clients. So there's many examples like that, and the Globe is freely available. There's a lot of tutorials on the web as well that you can use to understand how to use that a little bit better. So they've been some interesting applications of public open data that I just wanted to show you. Now what I've also got here is a list of what we have put together of tools that help you visualise or clean and ready data for you to use. And there's some great examples here of things. Now this list is not necessarily exhaustive, it's just one that we've put together that we think's pretty handy stuff for people to be able to use. The one I'm going to show you though is this one here, view data. It was on that list there. So view data I like because it's just drag and drop, and I can turn any old spreadsheet into some pretty cool stuff and see things that you wouldn't normally see by looking at a page of numbers and letters. So if you can access that view data by just clicking it, that screen will pop up. But I just wanted to show you how it actually works. So when you liven that link in the on our website, it brings you to the view data site. It's just taking a little minute to load. While that's doing that, oh, there it comes. So there's a whole bunch of pre-prepared data sets for you. There's some ABS data, so Queensland occupations by postcode, personal income by postcode, and home ownership by postcode. So those demographics data have been they're all available now from the from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. But what we've done, what Macro GIS has done, who've created view data, is they've made them, they've just done a bit of cleaning on them so that you can use them straight away without having to be a bit of an expert in data. Then you've got some really diverse ones just to show you how things, how data sets can be consumed. Now they're all public open data. You can use any old data set on this. It needs to have a location indicator in it, be it the actual lat and long, or if you have just got postcodes, something that's going to identify for the map to pick up where it is you're talking about in your spreadsheet. But for now I'm going to use the pre-prepared ones by Macro GIS because that makes things a lot easier. Now just let me bring those up. I've got them right here. I had them open a minute ago and then I closed them. Okay, so let's have a look, for example, at the crash data. So I'm going to show you what this data set looks like. You won't be surprised to see this. It's going to look like any old Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so that's pretty hard to get a really clear picture of what that data is trying to tell us. We don't know whether that's actually going to be meaningful about looking for patterns of days of the week that are really popular for accidents to happen, or whether there's particular months of the year, or we might be wanting to combine this with some weather data and have a look at maybe what's influencing road crashes and road fatalities in our areas. Or there could be all sorts of other influences that we want to combine that together with. So let's just jump out of that and close that down, because we've all decided that that's just all a little bit too hard to read. Okay. Now, let's drag it over here. The purpose of this exercise is to show you how easy data is to use. So that's going to have a little think, and it's going to pre-populate. There it is, automatically doing its stuff. Now, it's mapped that data set that we were looking at, and it's taken all of the column headings, which was about the severity of the crash, the month, and it goes right the way through, and it has pre-dashboarded those. So we can immediately have a look here and see, right, that data set, that spreadsheet I was showing you, it's telling us that August has more accidents in that year than any other month. It has more, we have more accidents on Fridays. We have more accidents that are an angle collision, etc. And you can then go down and have a look at locations. Now, you might be particularly interested in having a look at your area. Let's say your area is Woolloongabba. Okay, obviously that's mapped that, which isn't much of Queensland. There's a little pocket there that it's mapped. And all of these little dashboards are now just about Woolloongabba. So there's the streets and, sorry, there's the streets. There's the type of accident, and it's assessed all of this. So suddenly Wednesday's the most popular day for a crash in Woolloongabba, and February's the most common month. So what I was trying to do by this was just show you that there are tools that are available now that anybody can use. You don't have to be a data scientist. You don't have to have any technical background. You literally just drag and drop, and immediately you can see things in your data that you wouldn't have been able to see before. And that's why it's really important for small business to be across this, because you'll be able to use this sort of stuff and make far more informed business decision making than you would have before. The ABS data sets I can show you as well, just a quick one. They work in exactly the same way, and I've preloaded those. I'll just jump into it again and drag one across. So let's look at home ownership, drag it over. Now, a little bit fewer columns in these ones, because it's a different way that the data set's been put together. So that's the map, and that's where the ownership of portions is. So we've owned with a mortgage or rented, and then you can go through and drill down into locations that are of interest to you if you're looking to market to customers that are renting, for example. If you're a real estate business and you're looking for to identify those kind of markets, that's how you can consume those data sets and start to use it to make sense to you. So hopefully I've given you a quick introduction to what open data is, where to find it, and some of the quick and easy tools that are available right now for anyone to be able to use this. But if you're interested in learning a bit more, there are plenty more tools and lessons for you. The Open Data Institute has created a 13-part series of free online training. That's all available via that link. We have classroom learning, and please, by all means, get in touch and let us know if there's something in particular that you'd like to learn about more, and we'll see if we can maybe sort something out there. Never miss an opportunity to always acknowledge and thank the very, very important organisations that are behind the Open Data Institute Australian network. And thank you very much for your time in viewing this introductory tutorial on open data for small business.